All right, let's dive in. We're about to unlock the absolutely immense power that's hidden deep inside the heart of the atom. This is the science that has literally defined geopolitics, totally transformed medicine, and even promised us limitless energy. So the big question is, how does it all actually work? Just think about this for a second. What single force out there is powerful enough to light up our sun for billions of years, but can also be scaled way down to push a submarine silently through the deepest parts of the ocean? Well, the answer to both is exactly the same. It's the incredible energy released from the atomic nucleus.
So to really get a handle on that kind of power, we've got to start with the basics. And it all begins inside an unstable atom, right at the very heart of matter. Now, we're all pretty familiar with regular chemistry, right? That's all about electrons buzzing around on the outside. But nuclear chemistry, well, it pretty much ignores all of that and goes straight to the core, the nucleus. This is where the real heavy lifting happens. We're talking about protons and neutrons and the massive, massive amounts of energy that bind them together. So what happens when a nucleus is unstable? It tries to get stable. And the way it does that is through radioactivity. It just spontaneously starts shooting out particles and energy. You can almost think of it like a super jittery, overcaffeinated person trying to calm down by just throwing things. This spontaneous process, it's the engine behind literally everything we're about to talk about. So this natural decay, this energy release, it can be harnessed in two main ways. You can either tear a really heavy atom apart, or you can smash two light atoms together. Let's take a look at how that works. Okay, so on one side, you've got nuclear fission. This is where you take a big, heavy, unstable nucleus, something like an isotope of uranium, and you split it. On the other side, you've got nuclear fusion, and that's the complete opposite. You take really light nuclei, like isotopes of hydrogen, and you force them to combine. By the way, an isotope is just a different flavor of an element, maybe with a few more or less neutrons. The crazy thing is, both of these processes release an absolutely extraordinary amount of energy. Okay, I know this slide might look a little complex, but the idea is actually pretty simple. Over on the left, that's fission. See that tiny particle, a neutron? It hits a big uranium atom, which makes it wobble and then split into smaller atoms. But here's the key. That split also lets loose more neutrons and a huge burst of energy. Now on the right, that's fusion. This is what powers the sun. Two different types of hydrogen are slammed together under insane heat and pressure. They fuse, become a helium atom, and guess what? They also release a neutron and a massive amount of energy. Fusion is kind of the holy grail because its fuel is everywhere and it makes less radioactive waste. But containing the heat of a literal star here on Earth, well, that's a huge engineering challenge we're still working on. Now, fission in particular has this dual nature. It can be used to boil water and give us electricity, or it can be used for just unimaginable destruction. The difference between the two comes down to one single, absolutely crucial factor: control. So the key here is something called the nuclear chain reaction. Remember how splitting that uranium atom released more neutrons? Well, each of those new neutrons can zip off and split another uranium atom, which then releases even more neutrons, and on and on and on. It's a runaway effect, like a cascade. So the question becomes, do you want to harness that cascade slowly and deliberately, or do you just let it happen all at once? In a nuclear power plant, the whole goal is to tame that chain reaction. Okay, ignore all the other labels on the slide for a moment and just look at the diagram. The secret ingredient here is the control rods. These rods are made of materials that are basically like sponges for neutrons. By raising or lowering them, the operators can soak up just enough of those extra neutrons to keep the reaction from spiraling out of control. That, plus using fuel that's less concentrated, generates a really steady, manageable stream of heat, which we then use to make electricity. And this is what happens when you take away those controls completely. In an atomic bomb, the goal is the exact opposite. You use highly concentrated fuel, and you want the fastest, most widespread chain reaction you can possibly get. Without any control rods to absorb them, every single splitting atom triggers multiple others, which leads to this exponential, instantaneous release of all that nuclear energy in one catastrophic explosion. So it all boils down to this simple difference. I mean, the physics is identical, but by controlling the speed and absorbing those extra neutrons, we get clean energy. By letting it run absolutely wild, we get a weapon. It's the exact same science, but the applications are literally worlds apart. But hey, the story of nuclear chemistry isn't just about power plants and weapons. The same radioactive principles have given us this incredible toolkit that has revolutionized medicine, science, and industry in ways you probably wouldn't even expect.
In medicine, for example, radioactive isotopes or radioisotopes are genuine lifesavers. Doctors can use elements like iodine-131 as tracers. It naturally collects in the thyroid gland, which lets them see tumors. And for treatment, powerful isotopes like cobalt-60 can emit really targeted radiation to destroy cancer cells with incredible precision. It's amazing stuff.
And this toolkit extends way beyond the hospital. The totally predictable decay of carbon-14, that lets archaeologists figure out the age of ancient bones and artifacts. In industry, engineers use tracers to find microscopic leaks in massive pipelines, or even to study the wear and tear on piston rings inside an engine, without ever having to take it apart. It is a remarkably versatile technology.
So, we've seen the power, the control, and all the benefits. But to really have the complete picture, we have to talk about the inherent risks. We live in a world that has been shaped by nuclear science, and that includes its dangers.
You see, the same energy that can kill a cancer cell can also harm a healthy one. Radiation is dangerous because it damages our biological machinery on a really fundamental level. Now, some particles are only a threat if they get inside our bodies, but others, like powerful gamma rays, can pass right through us. The effects of overexposure are incredibly severe, which is exactly why handling this technology demands such extreme caution. And that brings us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? The atom holds the power of a star in one hand and the threat of total annihilation in the other. We've learned to control it, to heal with it, and to build with it. But the science itself? It's neutral. Its future is defined entirely by the choices we make. So what comes next?